Cleveland Browns have won 4 out of their last
Of
5
all of
games.
my bobbleheads are officially throwback. This one's for you.
This is a big one for me. You know?
In this time of few headlines in the sports culture, I was very happy to see that ESPN pushed up the date. This is non-Cleveland related, but they pushed up the date on the Bulls documentary, splitting that into, I don't know how many, 20 parts, 10 parts, whatever it is. It was unbelievable that they actually pushed that out into June. I think it was the original date, but we'll be able to see that in April. We're struggling for headlines now, but we actually have a lot of good news to talk about with the Browns. It's not going to be who has donated the most amount of money to people in need. I did see Shin-Shu Chu donating $1,000. I think it was 169 minor league, 191 minor leaguers. That's amazing. And
each one got $1,000.
Yep.
$191,000. That's pretty awesome. Kevin Love made a donation as well. So I think all these challenges are definitely bringing out the good in people, which is awesome. But like we've said on previous podcasts, at least podcasts that have aired, we are trying to regain some normalcy. So we're going to talk some Browns details here. And the Browns have made a couple of different signings. And I screwed up these names, a couple of names here, but Adrian Clayborn, a defensive end out of the Atlanta Falcons, a big signing by the Browns. Add to that Andrew Billings, a defensive tackle from the Bengals. And man, it's not too much news, but a lot of news and a lot of differing opinions on how we felt this free agency period is going to go before the draft. Drew, let me go to you first. What do you think about these most recent signings? And it's feeling pretty good, this free agency period, right?
Yeah, it is. I'm actually really impressed by it. This was my biggest concern with this this analytics-based crew, that they really wouldn't feel the need to spend in free agency at all, and they have. And I am really impressed. And these two signings specifically, I am all about. This was huge. This was a huge area of need. Depth along the defensive line. And the biggest concern I had is that under the old Microsoft Excel regime, one of their key tenets is something that I just fundamentally disagree with, and that is that you don't pay for depth. And you only dress 45 guys in a football game. You have to have at least average level depth, if you want to be a competitive, championship caliber roster. And these guys have ditched that old guardrail, as they used to call it, and this is wonderful. These two signings are fantastic. Let me give you some details. So Andrew Billings is the defensive tackle from the Bengals. He played nose tackle in their 4-3 type scheme. It just means that his job is sort of to eat some blockers, play over the center, stuff the run, and if he gives you anything in the pass rush game, you're way ahead. And this guy has played over 600 snaps the last 2 seasons at nose tackle. He has over a 69 PFF rating, which doesn't sound great, but it is one of the better interior run stuffing rankings there. And in addition to being very good against the run, he is a top 10 interior defender when it comes to being able to generate pressure in the pocket. So what it means is that he's really good at pushing the center backwards, which is something that this team has really struggled with. And you've seen it time and time again where Miles comes around the edge, the quarterback steps up 3 times, the center and it hasn't moved, and they get the pass off. With this signing, I think you're going to see a difference there. So I'm all about this Andrew Billings signing. 1 year, $3.5 million, not going to affect the salary cap at all, one way or the other. And the other one you mentioned, Adrian Clayborn, he's a little older. So Adrian Clayborn's 31 years old. Andrew Billings is 25. But Adrian Clayborn, this is a 2-year deal for a total of between $6 and $8 million. It'll probably be closer to $6. He's making about $3 million per year. Again, a non-factor almost in the salary cap. But they grade defensive ends and edge rushers on what they call pass rush win rate. This is again PFF, and he was 5th in the league. You know, he was just barely behind guys like Miles and Joey Bosa and J.J. Watt. This is a really good edge rusher. And one of the reasons that he was available, he is 31 years old. He's a little older, but he still has 2 more years in the tank for you. And he's a really good pass rusher. An interesting thing about Adrian Clayborn that everybody knows, he suffers from Erb's palsy. It just means that his right arm is limited. It still functions, but it is limited. And so he has to rush with his left side into the offensive tackle. That's where his strength is. So he actually has to rush from the right defensive end position. So, if he were to come in, if Olivier Vernon were to be hurt, or resting or whatever, Miles would have to swap sides. But Myles Garrett can do everything. Myles Garrett's a freak. I'm not worried about that. So you really don't lose a whole lot when you get down now into our primary depth. Andrew Billings is a very good replacement to Larry Ogunjobi. And Adrian Clayborn, I think, is a very good replacement to Olivier Vernon. I think there's finally some depth on this defensive side, which is something that this team has really suffered. Anytime one of those defensive linemen got injured, and they all missed, a game or two here or there, that defense went, from good to above average to good to, a very mediocre at best. And now I don't think you're going to see that huge drop-off. So I am all about these 2 signings. I applaud Andrew Berry. I am formally revoking the title of the MS Excel Regime 2.0. My hat's off to you. I've been very impressed with what they've done. My only issue is the linebackers, but we're not going to go there. These are 2 really good signings, and we should be excited about them.
Man, Eric, we won free agency, right? Did we win free agency?
Of course. But hey, I gotta agree with Drew. I really like both these moves. They're not gonna get you to the Super Bowl. They're not gonna be the last piece to the championship puzzle, but they're solid. They're solid signings, and I think the Billings is a little bit more important than the Clayborn, but both of them are wise investments. Let's take a look at Billings for starters. He started 30 of his last 32 games in the prior 2 seasons. He had 67 tackles in that span, just under 2.25 a game. Not too tremendous, but he's making plays. So the Browns' defensive tackles haven't been making that many tackles, I don't believe, in the last few seasons. He's had 12 tackles for losses and 11 quarterback hits in the last 2 years. He's only 25 years old, as Drew had mentioned, and so he has room to grow. More importantly, if you look at Sheldon Richardson's contract, he's got a $13.6 million cap number for this season and next. However, none of that is guaranteed in 2021. So, if things play out in one way, Andrew Billings is a great player. He could snatch up a pretty sizable contract next year, and the Browns could void Sheldon Richardson's 2021 deal. Or they could keep both of them. It really depends on how things go. But if we have that guy to join Sheldon Richardson in the center, as well as, most importantly, Larry Ogunjobi, that's a pretty good, formidable 3-man wrecking crew in that defensive interior for the Browns. So, I've seen things online where he's 330 pounds but listed at 311. He's a very large individual. We get that. He is a run stuffer, which is what he's claimed to be. But hey, if he can multitask and maybe do something, I'm not saying it gets sacks with the quarterback release, affect him so much that's going to allow that Myles Garrett, Olivier Vernon, Adrian Clayborn, whoever, to get that sack. That's really going to be a huge win for the Browns defense. So the last thing I'll say about Billings is you look at that defensive tackle depth, and like I said, Ogunjobi and Sheldon Richardson, he's the 3rd man right now. He's facing Daniel Aquale. I kind of remember him. There was a Devereaux Lawrence for the team last year who got released. We don't really have a tremendous amount of depth. Potentially we could get a late round rookie, but I would not expect him to be starting immediately or at all, if not getting some part-time play, I guess, at midway through the end of next season. So I think this is a solid signing for depth. I think he has that potential to be a very good medium to long-term solution for the Browns as a backup defensive tackle. I'm not saying he's a starter, but we need those for the Browns. We haven't had a good... I can't remember the last time we've had multiple interior defensive linemen that were good for the Browns. I could name one or two, but that was about it. Switching gears, Adrian Clayborn. Drew mentioned the meager contract. That's fine. He's only started 8+ games twice in his career, 2011 and 2013, both with Tampa Bay many moons ago. He's a situational player. I think that's a given. However, he's averaged just under 5 sacks a season over the last, I believe, 5 years. So, not playing that much and still getting that much sacks, that's what the Browns are basically banking on. Drew had said, he's kind of a one-trick pony coming off that right edge and, doing his thing. Like I said, I don't care if they switch Miles over or whatnot. If he comes only in on third downs or more situational passing attempts, hopefully, God willing, we're up by 2 to 3 scores late in the game. Maybe put him in there and kind of, or maybe not necessarily late in the game, but in obvious passing situations that we know that he's going to come and make life miserable for that offensive line and quarterback for the other team. Another thing that is really important is that he's played for Atlanta and New England. Both were in the Super Bowl. He was with New England when they beat the Rams, and he was with Atlanta when he lost to New England. However, he has that experience. He's had that winning culture. We're starting to get some of those guys, not saying he's the main, the most important guy for that, but he does have that veteran leadership, and hopefully he can, kind of keep Myles Garrett's head, kind of on his shoulders. I know he had that outburst last year. I know everybody remembers. But I'm hoping it's not only Myles Garrett.
What was that?
Oh, yeah, head in a helmet. I'm hoping...
he just helped the guy put his hat back on.
I'm hoping he can not only do it for Myles, but as well as the whole defensive unit, because they also lost Christian Kirksey and Joe Schobert this offseason. So, there's going to be a couple new veterans coming in this year, like Carl Joseph, that could help. BJ Goodson, a couple of guys they picked up, but he's at least a veteran that's been there and done that. And so, I think that's a why sign in that aspect too. And last thing is that he has 5 forced fumbles in the last 3 years. Again, not playing a lot of snaps, not getting hardly any starts, and he's still making an impact for a game. So I don't expect either of the two to be, you open up the newspaper or nowadays when it's 2020, you go online and you look up the box scores. You're not going to see them stand out. You're not going to see somebody from, Cleveland, this or that, say this player did this, player did that. They might be way down, but if they can influence that game doing what they are signed to do, then I think Andrew Berry made great signings, and I have faith that both these guys will do what they're supposed to do. And, I can't wait to see what the draft brings, but I feel a lot less hesitant about Andrew Berry's group than I did several weeks ago.
Who would have thunk it? Those Ivy Leaguers are making some smart decisions here, looking into the future. Right. What is our salary cap in the future? Money. Spending some money too. That is what we actually did not see earlier on, but we are very happy to see. But we have some other decisions that are coming up here that we want to see some more intelligence on, and that is the upcoming draft. Oh, thank you. We will have some sports news coming up here. The NFL draft coming up real soon that we will be able to watch. There won't be anyone attending, but there will be an NFL draft. And a part of sports is betting. So, Drew, Mr. Moneybags here, we're going to start with you here. I think the Browns are going to go offensive tackle, or we're at least going to handicap that. Mm-hmm. Can you play some odds on who the Browns are going to pick with this upcoming draft in the first round?
Oh man, odds making and the NFL draft all in one question. This is just right down my wheelhouse. I am all about this. Yes, I can play some odds on this. So I've put a lot of thought into this one. So who I am almost positive, and I'm willing to say with almost the same kind of certainty as I give you my picks that end up being locks of the week and win you all that money. You're welcome, big old bag of money. I am almost positive that Tristan Wirfs is number one in terms of these tackle prospects on their board. He's the only one that truly checks off all of their boxes, and those boxes can be summed up. I'll do my best to sum it up into testing ability and the ability to play right away. He ranks as a 99th percentile athlete in the Spark metric that we've sort of talked about on here. That means he is in the elite of the elite, which they love. They do. They can deny it all they want to. But he combines that with the fact that he played at Iowa and he played in some zone blocking schemes that he received from Kirk Ferenez. Excellent offensive line coaching. So this is a guy that can play right away and that is super athletic and is almost perfect for their wide zone blocking scheme. It's like they made this guy for them. I'm putting that he is not the favorite. I'm putting those odds at 4-1 because I think he is drafted before pick 10, and I do not see the Ivy Leaguers trading up. So he is actually the second highest on my board. I have him at 4-1. The favorite on my board is Andrew Thomas out of Georgia. He is not quite the elite level athlete that Tristan Wirfs is. He ranked in the mid to high 70s in terms of his Spark score, which is still very good. He's still a very good player, but he also received good coaching. Maybe not quite the level at Iowa, but he received some very good coaching at Georgia, and he has played for multiple years as the left tackle. So he is somebody that knows how to play that side of the offense, which is where he would play in Cleveland. So he is my betting favorite. I think he will be there at 10, and I suspect he will be the choice at 10. So at any sort of mock draft you're doing, go ahead and pencil in Andrew Thomas, offensive tackle from Georgia, to the Browns. I'm putting those odds at 5-2. So that's your betting favorite. All right. After that, we get into two of there's a four-man draft, four horsemen, four-man draft. That's some foreshadowing for later today. So in this, there are two other very highly rated talents. Those are Jedrick Wills from Alabama and Mekhi Becton from Louisville. So I actually have Jedrick Wills as at 8-1. He is somebody that I think is ready to play right away. He has played at Alabama. Again, very good coaching there. He played right tackle, but he did protect Tua's blind side. Tua's a left-handed quarterback. So he's still protecting the blind side. He's just going to have to learn how to play left tackle. It's not something he's done a whole lot of. The same can be said of Tristan Wirfs, by the way. But I think he's somebody that they will very much consider. If the other two are off the board, I think they go Jedrick Wills there. He's another mid to high 70s Spark athlete. And then the other option, which I haven't heard a lot as likely for them, and I'm surprised, is Mekhi Becton. He is a 100th percentile athlete as far as Spark is concerned. His 365 ability to move quickly, that weight-adjusted 40 time is incredible. He's incredibly strong, incredibly gifted, but he is a very, very much a raw prospect. He has not received the same level of NFL coaching and of NFL schemes that these other players have. I'm not knocking the Louisville program. It's just, you're not getting the type of coaching you are at Iowa and Alabama that you are there. So he is much more raw. He's going to make some mistakes early. And when you make a mistake as a left tackle, you get a quarterback buried. So he is somebody that I think they will pick if the other three are gone, but I have him at 10-1. So Andrew Thomas, your betting favorite, 5-2. Tristan Wirfs, 4-1. Jedrick Wills, 8-1, and Mekhi Becton at 10-1. There's your odds. Place your bets accordingly.
Very nice. So Eric, how do you differ from that? Do you want to poke any holes, or do you want to play some bets?
I'm good with I'm good with 2, and I flip flop the other 2. So I think if this is a horse race, I think Tristan Wirfs would definitely be your secretariat. He used to be your likely number 1 option, but I don't think he's going to be there. We had said high spark score, plays multiple positions, in a good scheme, in a good program, who cranks out tremendous athletes, especially the offensive line. So if something happens and he falls, great. I think that's the Browns' first option, and that'd be a great sign for them. I also my next one was Andrew Thomas. Kind of with the same things that Drew had said. He'll likely be on the board. I'm not sure that Wills will be, but I would say Thomas will likely be on the board. He's a 3-year starter, left tackle, has that history. I mean, you're playing in the SEC, playing a lot of good competition. And from what I've watched from game film, he can get out and move. Maybe not as much as Becton, but he's not as stagnant as some left tackles are. So I know with the zone blocking scheme, you're not going to just be stagnant. You're going to be moving left or right. So that would be my next one. And then I would flip-flop the other 2 only because of I'm going to go based off spark scores and size, I guess.
Welcome to the dark side.
and size, I guess, is Becton the 6'7", 364, 364 pounds, as well as the high spark score. He is potentially a project. He is that large guy. He can move tremendously, but I don't know how well he has done as far as playing guys that would be NFL caliber talent, as well as what Thomas and Wirfs and Wills have done. So, I mean, if they want to go that route, they're more than welcome to. But that's why I would pick him third over Wills. I think they would like that metric more than what Wills has, as well as Wills not playing the left tackle position. I know it was the blind side, but you have your feet working one way versus the other, and a lot of things going facing one way versus another. So there's that too to look for. Wills, I'd still say he'd be possibly available. I mean, you never know these mock drafts. I've seen some where he's gone 6 or 7, some where he's still on the board after us. So he still has a decent box score, and I think if all the other 3 guys are gone, I wouldn't be upset with him, especially with that signing of Conklin. We're not. We still need a left tackle, but we're not in complete desperate need. But I think I would still keep him at left tackle, and we could keep Conklin at right tackle. But I would feel a lot better about our offensive line had we take one of these 4 guys. So yeah, so I guess long story short, we kind of agree, but I really hope the Browns do a smart pick, and I know Ezra Cleveland and a couple other guys that they like with high spark scores. They don't forego a very good player to trade down 10, 15 spots and hope their guy's still there. So I'm still keeping the faith.
Man, that's what the
Keeping the
analytics say
faith.
to do.
Yes. Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch this draft, have some sporting events that are going on. Yeah, I mentioned it's going to be fun to, even though it's the Bulls, but you sort of forgive that as time goes by. Seeing that documentary, also seeing the draft, it's going to have some sporting events here. I sent out a sad tweet that we should be preparing for the Final Four, but that is done. So we have to talk about things like jerseys and NFL draft hats. So, which is interesting. I don't know. I'll get your guys' opinion here on the draft hats. It seems like a lot of times they're a miss. Drew, what do you think about the Browns draft hat that's out there right now? Do you think that's a hit or a miss?
So I think the NFL has done a pretty cool job with these neon draft hats. I'm a fan of the concept, but that stupid elf needs to be buried under the wreckage of Cleveland Municipal Stadium. Bury that thing with that old decrepit stadium. I am so sick of that stupid elf. That is the worst mascot. That is the worst possible logo. I'll take a goofy helmet before I'll take this stupid elf. I am like, a little magical figure from... No. Are you kidding me? Absolutely not. The elf needs to be buried. And look, if you don't like the dog pound, the old dog logo of the early 2000s, fine, right? I happen to like it. Fine. If we want to do away from both those, let's just roll out the Block C and do like any other franchise would. have a big, classy Block C as your stupid logo, and be done with it. What are we doing? I loathe the elf. I loathe it, and I cannot. It just drives me nuts to know that it might be coming back, and it appears to very much be coming back. That's their official draft hat. When they select someone, they're going to go like with the cameras, maybe, or hopefully, at some point to see this person, except being drafted by the Cleveland Browns. And this gigantic offensive tackle like Tristan Wirfs is going to put on this stupid elf hat. And I am over it. I hate this elf. I cannot stand him. I want him gone. I wish he was never a part of this program. It's the only thing Art Modell ever got right in his entire terrible life was to hate that elf. And I don't care. It is awful. It needs to be a distant memory, not something we try to bring back. It is awful.
Oh man, I need a new hat, Eric. I think you've got some.
Yeah, I should have worn my hat. It's upstairs. I'll do it next time. So I pro versus con. I am pro elf. I am not necessarily pro elf on this specific hat. I feel like the neon working with this elf kind of distorts it and doesn't make it really look good. But in general, I like the elf. Here's why. Two things. One, as Drew had mentioned, Art Modell did not like it. That makes me like it even more. They won their championships. Okay. They won their championships with Paul Brown and Blanton Collier with that elf. Couple other things. Love the logo here, but is that really a logo? When you see a star, you know that star's on the helmet. Where is this going? Is this helmet going on the helmet, and that going on that helmet, and that going on that helmet? And
that would be cool.
That would be something. That would be
the New Jerseys.
I'm not saying the elf has to go on the helmet, but it's just an odd look. I mean, I remember how many times watching ESPN, if I'm allowed saying that, I don't know, but watching a four-letter network, and you see either the word Browns in a rectangle or just an orange rectangle. You need something there. I mean, so, the helmet's, it's fine. I got no problem with it, but at least the elf's something different, and I know that's not going to be on the helmet. And I mean, that's kind of all I got. Like I said, Art Modell didn't like it. Yeah, it's not the most menacing of mascots, but he's not the one playing the games. I mean, I don't really care about that. I mean, you look at Alabama, they have their numbers on the side of the helmet, and they have like an elephant with a long tusk that's stay on the sidelines. They're a good football team. It doesn't really technically matter what the mascot is. Just be good at, just have a good program and have good players, and you'll be a good team. So.
If Alabama took this elf and adopted it tomorrow, they would never win another championship. This thing's terrible.
Drew, going heel on us. Yes. Applauding Art Modell. That is just absolutely ludicrous.
I cannot stand this elf, man.
Which gives us an opening here to transition over to some actual sporting events, if you call professional wrestling sports. And it most certainly is a real competition that will be going on. I think it's going to be pre-recorded for everyone's safety. But there will be WrestleMania this weekend, sort of a bummer, but this is one of the few events that is still going on, even though it's pre-recorded. Don't have a crowd out there, but even without crowds, all of the events around the nation television shows have been canceled, but the world will be watching WrestleMania this weekend. So I thought to help us prepare, we'll talk a little bit about our favorite WrestleMania moments. I don't know if we'll get a favorite WrestleMania moment for an empty arena coming up here this Sunday. But Eric, let's go to you first here. Your favorite WrestleMania moment?
Well, I appreciate that that you would go to me first to let Drew have his way at the end, the way I have my trivia or puns or anything. So that being said, the one I kind of really remember, because I haven't seen the last couple, is the 2001, I think. So that was, I think, our junior year in high school, the no DQ Rock versus Stone Cold Steve Austin match.
Yeah, that's an awesome match.
So yeah, one of a few versus the two. I was, that was when I started liking Stone Cold Steve Austin. 316 and that whole thing, and the tables, ladders, and chairs match. That was another thing that happened with that one. So that was a lot to obviously say as well as watch. So that was pretty exciting. I kind of remember that. And then the other two were a little bit before that time in the 1990s. One that I kind of remember was 1994, the Razor Ramon over Shawn Michaels. And in a ladder match, I think that was one of the first ladder matches I'd ever seen. I've never unfamiliar with that whole.
It was one of the first ones in WWE.
And then the other one, I couldn't probably tell you who would have won, but I knew these two guys were, I guess one was technically maybe an up-and-comer and one was on his way down, was Bam Bam Bigelow versus Doink the Clown. That was the thing.
This is what you're naming as one of your
you're
favorites?
You get to say no more on this topic.
Yeah, Drew.
No.
You're next.
What
are
done.
you talking about,
That was a good
Eric?
matchup.
You get nothing. No.
Last thing I'll say.
Okay.
Drew,
you were doing
next.
just fine until you had to ruin it with that.
But wait,
all right, I'm going to hit you with my...
Last one.
No,
one.
no,
Brutus the Barber
no,
Beefcake.
no.
Money Incorporated. Ted DiBiase. Erwin R. Shyster.
This is horrible.
You can't forget this.
You have to mute this guy, Ryan.
It's the wrong show.
Terrible.
It's the wrong
things
show.
to end
I wish
it
I could
on.
mute him,
I
but-
don't care. Find a way. All right, so I have my three favorite. There's so many awesome ones to choose from, but one of my favorites, and this is going to surprise some people, but one of my all-time favorite WrestleMania moments is the first ever Money in the Bank ladder match. This was a brand new concept that people I didn't know what to expect from it. Going into it, I thought, well, Chris Jericho's just making this up so he can be in WrestleMania because he didn't have a match at the time, and they did a great job with this. Edge ended up winning it. And now Money in the Bank is one of my favorite pay-per-views, right? Like when you win that thing, that's something to be celebrated. You get this briefcase, you get to declare a match whenever you want to. It's become a coveted piece of the company, right? That was really a really cool match. They really did a good job selling it with Edge and Christian. They always work well together. And obviously Jericho is one of the best in the business. So those three, there were some other guys in there too that I don't remember, but they did an awesome job with that. So that's one of them. Another one, fairly recently here, this is from WrestleMania 25. This is Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker. This is probably the last time that these guys were even close to their prime. Neither one were in it, but Shawn did a really good job in this match. Taker, he even in 2009, even 11 years ago, he was obviously not the same guy that he was in the mid 90s. But they combined to put on a really good match. And you thought this might be the time that somebody finally breaks the streak, and then Undertaker caught him, hit him with the tombstone, and beat him in the end. And it was a really cool match. I thought they both did a great job. And my all-time favorite WrestleMania match was Bret Hart versus Stone Cold. This is WrestleMania 13. This is right when sort of wrestling started to pick up again in that mid 90s, mid to late 90s, I should say. This is 1997. And this is the, I don't know if it was an I Quit match or surrender or first to tap out, but you had to win via submission.
Was it 60-minute Iron Man match, I believe?
No, that was Shawn Michaels.
Oh, it was? That's right. Okay. Was it First Blood? No, that couldn't be it. Now I'm screwing it up.
I remember that you had to, you couldn't win via pinfall. So you had to, and obviously that, advantage Bret Hart in that sort of a case. And Bret Hart put in the sharpshooter, and Stone Cold just passed out.
Right,
He refused to tap out. And at the time, Stone Cold was a heel, and Bret was one of the faces of the company. And after this, because Bret, the way this match went, the crowd started to get behind Steve Austin at the time. And, a couple of months later, Stone Cold Steve Austin was born. And I look at that as one of Bret Hart's best matches ever. He was a technician. He was so good in the ring, but it also gave birth to the greatest superstar in the company's history. And so that's number one for me. It was a classic match, really technical. They did a great job with one another, and it got somebody way, way, way over, which is always the goal. When you have a match like that. So those two together, both in their primes, that was number one for me.
Yeah, you remind me a little bit. I think I'm a huge Ric Flair fan. Looking back, I really enjoyed, especially looking back, so much nostalgia about him in his match with Shawn Michaels, the retirement match, the end there where Shawn Michaels super kicks Ric Flair, saying that sorry, but I love you, or I love you, but I'm sorry. Yeah. That one was great, but the one that I came in is more of a recent one, and it's the quintessential underdog story. Daniel Bryan. A lot of times in WrestleMania, there isn't that payoff in the main event, and I thought this was the best year for main event payoff and just payoff of a full year of wrestling. That was Daniel Bryan winning the Undisputed Championship, winning both belts. The crowd just absolutely loved it. That was what the crowd wanted to see. It was just such I think so much for me, sports are tied to that crowd reaction. That's why I go back to wrestling. Even my favorite Browns, Cavs, Indians memories. Cavs Game 6, seeing how excited that crowd was. In New Orleans, the crowd was just incredible for that Daniel Bryan win. They wanted to see it. The WWE delivered. And that's the sad part. The crowd isn't a part of these events.
That's going to be tough with wrestling, man. I've tried to watch a couple of them, and it's just not the same.
So it will be an escape for us. We'll see what kind of creativity. I think the great thing about this is that there's been so many creative avenues for everyone to do something different, do something that still entertains us. We're here in our homes, and there's still things that will, we can be more creative. You can be more creative, and the things that we watch can be different and more creative. And I think if we latch on to that value, there's going to be better times when we get out of this, but enjoy what we're doing right now, and embrace that creativity. And we'll just see where it goes. I'll be watching WrestleMania. I'll be curious to see what kind of creative things they do, and I'll be curious to see what creative things we do next week. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thanks, man.
All right, talk to you guys next week.
Yep.
Yep.